Ding dong. What?
Test.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this joint meeting of the Recreation and Education Committee and the Ways and Means Committees to order. The purpose of this joint meeting is to hold a public hearing on the 2011-2012 operating budget for the Monroe Community College. We will then proceed with the agenda items that have been assigned to both Recreation and Education Committee and Ways and Means. When the Rec and Ed Committee items are finished, that committee will adjourn and will complete the remainder of the Ways and Means Committee agenda.
Good afternoon. At this time, would the clerk please call the roll for the Recreation and Education Committee?
Mr. Gamble. Here. Mr. Gamina. Here. Ms. Cayley. Here. Mr. Tucciarello. Here. Chairwoman Valerio.
Here.
And would the clerk please call the roll for the Ways and Means Committee?
Ms. Andrews. Here. Mr. Barker. Here. Chairman Daniele.
Here.
Mr. Esposito is excused. Mr. Haney. Here. Mr. Hyder is excused. Mr. McCann is excused. Mr. O'Brien. Here. Dr. Quattro. Here. Mr. Tucciarello. Here. Mr. Yolovich.
Here.
At this time, we will now hold a public hearing on the approval of the Monroe Community College's 2011-2012 operating budget. And also at this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Ann Kress, President of MCC, and Mr. Hezzy Simmons, who was the Financial Executive of the Year, according to Robert, the Rochester Business Journal. Yes, so if you would like to present the highlights, we welcome you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak about the MCC budget and to respond to any questions that you might have. I'd like to open just with some highlights and some comments about the college and about the budget. I would like to thank you on behalf of our students for all of your support for MCC. As you may know, every dollar that you invest in MCC is rewarded with great returns. Our return on investment for tax dollars is 9%. Our students' lifetime income for every dollar that they invest in their education at MCC increases $6.10, which is a 17.1% average return. And in fact, because of the way that we do operate at MCC, we are able to offer such returns because we have low operational costs. Our operational costs are about 27.5% below the SUNY average, and that's a consistent trend at the college, that level of efficiency. Within the recent year, we educated an estimated 36,702 students, that's credit and non-credit, in 2010-2011. 81% of those students came from Monroe County. Unfortunately, because of the economy, increasingly those students were dependent on financial aid. In fact, 68% of them, 68% of all of our students received some form of aid, and about 52% of them received Pell or TAP aid. We are proud to say that we educate the largest percentage of minority students within the SUNY Community College system at 32%, so we are dedicated to serving the full diversity of our community. Within this coming year and the past year, we've also engaged in some significant facilities improvements, most notably a project that was approved last year by the county legislature, the dental lab. What you may not realize is that at MCC, we actually provide services for 5,000 local residents in our dental clinic. And thanks to an incredible donation by one of our own faculty, Dr. Saroz Viswanathan, and her husband, Dr. T.K. Viswanathan, as well as a corresponding donation by 2 different dental societies, we've been able to provide the match to SUNY's 50% for that project, which will open in August, providing complete dental care in a much updated facility for all of our citizens. We're also in the midst of Building 9 renovations. Building 9 on the MCC campus, some of you may know, is the Gleason Hall of Science and Technology. It was a building that was built in 1968, and through recent renovations, again, thanks to great investment by Monroe County through the CIP program, we've been able to bring that 1968 building up to LEED Gold certification, to add within the existing footprint of that building 10 much needed classrooms, and also to bring in some state-of-the-art classrooms to prepare 21st century learning environments. And then I think everyone is well aware of the college's continued commitment to sustainability. The parking program was modified last year to include a Green Savers program, which encourages our students to carpool. We did launch a shuttle service, the first of its kind service at MCC between the Brighton campus and the Damon campus, with the help of the MCC Association, which has been unprecedented in its success. And in fact, we were just having conversations this week about adding more lines to that. It does enable students to take classes at both campuses, and about half the enrollment at the Damon City campus is comprised of students who also take courses at Brighton. And along with Monroe County as a partner, we are one of the lead sponsors for the Greentopia Festival, so we're delighted to do that. And of course, you're aware of our outstanding faculty, and I just wanted to highlight one individual. We have an individual, Professor John Waddick, who is one of just 25 SUNY Professors of the Year, the distinguished professors honored by the Chancellor, and the only community college professor within the 64 SUNY campuses so honored by the Chancellor this year. And in fact, just today I received a call from the American Community College Trustees Association, and I learned that John Waddick is in fact going to be honored as the Northeast Regional Faculty Member of the Year. As we look forward to 2011-2012, we have three real initiatives at the college that will comprise the majority of our working time. And of course, the number one is economic development. As you've heard repeatedly, and in fact at the announcement yesterday by Governor Cuomo and Lieutenant Governor Duffy of the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Councils, what we need to focus on is jobs. And so over the past year, in fact, at MCC, we've added a new position to focus on nothing but this activity. The Vice President for Economic Development and Innovative Workforce Services was a position added at no additional cost to the college by using existing dollars. Todd Oldham, who is that new Vice President, is not here, in fact, because he's right now addressing a group that's part of those new engagements with the community. He's addressing the 1199 United Healthcare Workers East and Local 200 United group in their celebration of education. It's a group that we've started a new program with to offer education benefits that will enable them to move up and to progress in their careers. We also will be happy to host not just the launch of the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Councils, but all meetings for that council within the coming year, and to provide facilitators from our faculty for that group. We also are focused on college completion. I know there's a lot of discussion in the community about college completion and college readiness. We have great partnerships with the Rochester City School District and all school districts, in fact, in trying to increase college readiness, reduce remediation, and increase career readiness as well, especially in some targeted middle skills areas. And of course, we continue to work on the Damon City Center. Together with the county administrators, we're trying to find the new site for that downtown campus, and we value the partnership with the county in that work. And we're focused on finding a site that first and foremost meets the needs of our students, knowing that wherever we locate, we will certainly be a boon to the economic vitality of the city. Now as to our budget. MCC's proposed budget for 2011-2012 is $123,780,000. This budget is flat year on year compared to last year, so there is no increase in our budget. Actions were taken throughout this year to bolster institutional efficiencies to assure that we could achieve this flat year-on-year budget. In the coming year, we anticipate an enrollment of 36,791 students. It's a slight increase in headcount, but in fact what we anticipate is a decrease in full-time equivalent enrollment, 2.8% decrease. Part of that is due to the economy. Enrollment at community colleges is countercyclical to the economy. When the economy is in a downturn, students enroll. When it starts to tick upward and they can get jobs in the economy, then they'll leave college or go part-time. What that means in terms of FTE is 16,181 aidable FTE we're anticipating for the coming year. Monroe County sponsorship is proposed at $17.9 million, which reflects a requested increase of $1.2 million. As a percent of the college's net operating costs, the local share, if approved, will have grown from 15.5% in 2009-2010 to 20% in the coming year. which makes significant progress towards the statutory 26.7%. And I do want to note that in terms of keeping our budget flat, the college leadership has done an incredible series of actions that led to this occasion of flat year-on-year budget. First of all, we did the budget reduction exercise, which actually reduced our internal budget by about $7 million to allow the budget to remain flat. Part of that was that all leadership is foregoing a raise in the coming year. It's not a significant amount of our budget, but it does set a tone about fiscal responsibility and fiscal leadership that I think really served the institution well this past year. The college, in our coming budget, will use $2 million of our fund balance, which I know is important, that we do use our rainy day fund when the rainy days come. And so our reserve level will be at about the minimum amount recommended by SUNY, but we are still within SUNY guidelines. Our concerns as we move forward is that obviously we can no longer count on revenue growth through enrollment growth. We think we've hit the peak of our enrollment growth, and from this point forward, will be flat or slightly decline. We also are concerned, as is everyone, with rising healthcare costs and pension costs, and with decreasing state aid rates. State aid year on year has declined by $138 per FTE to $2,122, which is the lowest level we've seen since 1999-2000. The impact on our students of the proposed budget is a tuition increase of $60. We tried to keep that as low as possible, recognizing that access and affordability are incredibly important within this community. And I should note that the tuition increase you see before you was supported by our students through resolution to our Board of Trustees. So in closing, I just want to thank you for your continued support of Monroe Community College. It has been consistent and unwavering since the college's founding almost 50 years ago. And in fact, as we go on to celebrate our 50th anniversary in the coming year, we know that we couldn't change our students' lives or strengthen our community or help fulfill this community's promise if it weren't for your assistance. So thank you so much for your continued support of MCC. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Madam Clerk. Well,
Affidavits of publication and posting of the notice of the hearing in the Daily Record and Rochester Business Journal have been received and are on file in the clerk's office.
is there anyone signed up to speak besides Dr. Kress?
There is not.
Okay. And is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address any questions to Dr. Kress at this time? Okay. There being none, I think that our public hearing is formally closed. Thank you, Dr. Kress. Thank you, Hazzy.
If you want to hang there for just a minute, when we introduce this legislation and it becomes on the floor, then we'll give the opportunity for the legislators to ask some questions. But before that, Ms. Razi, are there any speakers scheduled or signed up to speak this evening on any of the matters coming before the committee?
There is not.
Okay. There being no speakers, I declare the public forum closed.
Members of the Recreation and Education Committee, you have the minutes from the May 24th, 2011 meeting. They will stand approved as submitted unless there are any questions or any corrections made by the end of the day.
And members of the Ways and Means Committee, you have the minutes from the June 29th, 2011 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless any changes are submitted by the end of the day today.
We will now move on to new business. Please note that the asterisk and an initialized print on your agenda for action by both committees. Mrs. Razi, please read the item to be considered by both committees.
Referral 11-193, approval.
Okay, moved by Mr. Gamina, second by Mr. Tucciarello.
I think it has to be seconded by somebody on your committee. Oh, you are.
Both.
Look at you.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Double duty.
Okay. Any discussion, any questions?
From the Rec and Ed Committee.
Rec and Ed
What we'll do
Committee.
is, can we have both pieces on the floor at the same time?
It's a
for
little
both committees?
confusing, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so why don't we, from the Ways and Means Committee, do I have Moved by Legislator Barker, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. No? Why don't we do Legislator Yolovich? How's that sound? And now that the agenda is on the floor, are there any legislators on either committee who would like to ask any questions? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the year that ended last August 31st, that is your 2009-2010 fiscal year, I believe your revenues exceeded your expenses by almost $4 million. Is that correct? Am I reading the financial statement correctly? $3,984,000. The figure I see is that the change in net assets is a positive $3,984,802.
That's correct.
Okay. In your 2010-2011 budget, you budgeted that you would be using $3.3 million of your fund balance. Now that your year is almost over, do you have an estimation as to where you're actually going to come in for the year?
We anticipate using $3 million of fund balance.
So, okay, so you'll be about 300,000 better than, okay. Is there anything budgeted in the budget for lobbying firms?
No.
No? Okay. I noticed that while most of the expense areas are dropping, and you're to be commended for that, I noticed that general administration is going up by 4.6%. In particular, in that area, salaries are going up 5.6%, and contractual is going up 7%. Can you give me some explanation as to why? Or if you can't do it today, you can submit it before the legislature meeting. I'm looking on page 11 of your budget. If you'd rather submit a written explanation, that'd be fine. Oh, reclassification of staff? Okay, so some of the decrease in other areas is offset by the increase in, okay. Okay. The financial statements for last August 30th indicate that at that time you had $44.8 million deposited in money market accounts, $27.8 million at M&T Bank and $17 million at Chase. And this has been going up about $3 million a year for some time. Roughly how much do you have in those money market accounts now?
In the Chase account, it's about the same.
I'm sorry?
In the Chase account, it hasn't changed. It's roughly
Okay.
18 million.
And in the M&T account?
In the M&T account, today, it's probably 30 million.
30 million? Okay. So right now, there's about 47 or 48 million in money market accounts. What interest?
Actually, a combination of money market as well as just checking.
What interest rate are you getting on those? I know I'm getting 0.1% on my money market account. What interest rate are you getting?
Roughly 22 to 23 basis points.
So 0.23%. M&T and Chase must love you to pieces. I hope they're taking you to lunch every month or something. Why, I mean, 10-year Treasury notes are paying 3% today. That was yesterday's quote, 3%. I mean, it's not as if this money fluctuates. It keeps, the money in the money market accounts keeps growing every year. Why, rather than be satisfied with 0.28% interest, why don't you do something like buying Treasury notes that'll pay you 3% interest?
First of all, we are not satisfied with 23.
Yeah, I have a hearing problem. Could you use the microphone?
Sorry. I was about to say we are not satisfied at all with the rates that we are receiving. We are constrained by the rules and regulations given to us by SUNY in terms of instruments that we can invest in. Now, I have not asked them about Treasury,
Yeah.
and I will.
Well, I can assure you that, and I'm sure Mr. Adair can, that securities issued by the United States government are authorized for, I mean, I'm not suggesting you go out and buy Kodak stock or something. I can assure you that U.S. Treasury securities are authorized by state law for all governmental entities. The reason I asked the question is, if this money was invested in 10-year Treasury notes at 3% interest, it would increase your interest income by almost $1.5 million a year.
Now, we do have significant fluctuation during the year in terms of our cash, with the exception of the Chase account. So yes, it's possible that we could go to Treasury with the Chase funds. Again, I'll have to go back and walk this through through our SUNY regs. But for the M&T account, that account fluctuates, even though at the end of the year you see that large number, and today there's a large number, but it is an account that fluctuates very dramatically.
Okay, so I'll knock a third off. If you invested in the Treasury notes, your interest income would go up $1 million a year. Why? I mean, I don't, my intent is not to be pejorative, because you folks are doing a lot of wonderful things at MCC. But it almost strikes me as nearly fiscal mismanagement to leave $48 million sitting in money market accounts.
We'll take your counsel on that and go back and examine it and give you, if there's some reason we can't, we will advise.
The 1% tuition increase, the way I tried to do a calculation, the 1% tuition increase, the way I calculated it is going to yield about $600,000 next year. Is that roughly correct? I'm sorry?
It's closer to $1 million.
The point I'm obviously getting to is that if your $48 million was invested in 3% Treasury notes, you wouldn't have to be increasing tuition, and you'd still have $400,000 left over. I mean, I have to say that truly bothers me. But moving on, the last issue.
Mr. Haney, I hate to be a stickler for detail, but make sure you're asking the questions through the chair. Thank you.
Through the chair. And we've talked about this before. The budget indicates that it includes $5 million for the accrual of what accountants are affectionately calling the OPEB benefits, the other retirement benefits, which is basically health insurance for retirees. And that $5 million is in the budget as a budgeted expense. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, it is.
Okay. Now, I realize that under the rules that were issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that you have to accrue the liability for the retirement health insurance. Why are we, and this is an issue of much controversy because unless the college went out of existence, it's a liability you're never going to have to pay. And it's why the money in the money market accounts is going up $3 or $4 million a year. You're never going to have to pay this money unless you went out of existence. I realize you're required by the accounting rules to accrue the liability at the end of the year. Why do you run it through your budget and, in effect, charge the county and the students for the $5 million and accumulate the cash?
I think I would give you two responses to that. One is the one that you mentioned. It's GASB rules, and we are adhering to it. The second is we think it's prudent management.
We what?
We think it's prudent to budget the expenses, even though it may take some dramatic event where we were forced to pay it anytime in the near future. But we believe following the regulations and being prudent are the steps that we should be taking to do this.
Well, I agree with you that at year end the liability has to be accrued, but, and again through you, Mr. Chairman, I obtained recently the financial statements for both Onondaga Community College and Erie County Community College, which are fairly similar sized institutions, etc. Neither, I mean, at year end, they're both accruing the liability because they have to, but neither one of them is running it through their budget. They're not funding the liability. And I'm left wondering why we are. We're never going to have to pay it, as I say, unless you go out of business. I guess
Through the chair, I can't answer for Erie or Onondaga, and I give you the same answer as to why we feel it's the correct thing to do.
Well, you might want to, through you, Mr. Chairman, you might want to consult with your partners at Onondaga and Erie, because if it weren't for this $5 million that you've budgeted in this budget, which you're never going to pay to anybody unless you go out of business, you wouldn't need an additional $1.2 million from Monroe County this year. And in fact, you wouldn't need $5 million from Monroe, from anybody. You wouldn't need to be increasing your technology fee by 60%. I mean, as I say, I don't mean to be pejorative, because you people are doing a lot of wonderful things out there. And since you've come on board, President Kress, my personal opinion, I'm not an educator. My personal opinion is that you've done a wonderful job. I've been very impressed. But I am really troubled by two things. One is leaving this $48 million just sitting in money market accounts when you could be earning somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million a year in interest, additional in interest, and your funding of this liability for retiree health insurance. I mean, Monroe County isn't funding their liability.
Legislator Haney, I think your point has been made. Do you have any other questions relative
No, I
to
have
this
no
budget?
other questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any questions relative to this budget? There being no further questions,
All those in favor signify, of the Recreation and Education Committee signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
and all those in favor from the Ways and Means Committee. That was discussion for both committees, but if you have another question, I don't.
Another question.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to explain my vote. I'm going to vote against this budget. And I'm going to vote against it for the two reasons that came out during the discussion. I don't believe there's any reason, I don't see any need to increase the tuition. All they got to do is take that money out of those money market accounts and instead have Chase Bank buy them $40 million worth of 10-year Treasury notes. And that will wipe out the need for the tuition increase and the need for about half of the technology fee increase. And secondly, I'm voting against the budget because I think it's wrong that they're including in the budget $5 million for an expense that will never be paid to anybody. And what it's doing, what the inclusion of this, I mean, if Mr. Adair included the similar cost in the county budget, the Monroe County budget would go up by, well, I forget the number, but something like $10, $12 million a year. If he chose to build up a kitty, which fortunately he doesn't, and if at one point it was my understanding that there were SUNY rules that required that this be budgeted, but I've now learned that neither Erie nor Onondaga County budget this. And if we didn't budget it, we would not have to be increasing our county contribution to the college. And I remind my compatriots that the increase in the county contribution represents a tax increase. Our county taxpayers in the county services levy next January will see a $1.2 million increase in that service levy. And because of the way it's apportioned, that will unfortunately disproportionately impact the city and the west side towns because it's apportioned by the number of students that go to the college. And I do not think that $1.2 million increase is needed if we were not budgeting the $5 million for a liability that is never going to get paid to anybody. And since I've discovered that neither Erie nor Onondaga Community Colleges budget it, I cannot in conscience ask the taxpayers of this county to fund it any more than they asked the taxpayers of Erie or Onondaga County to fund it. And therefore, I am voting no.
Legislator Yolovic?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I sit here and I listen to this long spiel, and some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't make sense, but I think Mr. Haney's numbers are off, and he didn't pay attention to the answer that he got, that the M&T account fluctuates constantly, so there's no way you could have T-bills for that. It has to be a liquid account. You understand that, and I understand that, so that's my point. I think he's way off on his numbers there. And secondly, I'd like to ask for a roll call vote.
Is there any other discussion? Yes, Legislator Haney.
I would be glad to see some kind of a report. The Chase account, which is 17 million, you said never changes. And if you wanted to submit a report showing how much the M&T money market, not the checking, there was another 1.5 million in checking accounts last August, how much the M&T money market fund fluctuates. I'd be glad to adjust my numbers to the minimum balance in the M&T. But as I say, even giving a 50% variance, the amount of additional interest possible exceeds the tuition increase.
Thank you, Legislator Haney. Madam Clerk, would you please call a roll call vote?
For the Ways and Means Committee, Ms. Andrews? No. Mr. Barker? Yes. Chairman Daniele?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito is excused. Mr. Haney? No. Mr. Hyder is excused. Mr. McCann is excused. Mr. O'Brien? Dr. Quattro? Yes. Mr. Tucciarello? Yes. Mr. Yolovich?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
7-2. Budget passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other matters to come before the Recreation and Education Committee? Okay, there being no further business, the July 27th meeting of the Recreation and Education Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Recreation and Education Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, August 23rd at 5 p.m. Thank you.
We will now continue with the remainder of the Ways and Means agenda. Ms. Razi, please read the next item on the agenda.
Referral 11-187.
Moved by Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Barker. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 11-188. Amend the 2011.
Moved by Legislator Barker, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. Item carries. Oh, I'm sorry.
Opposition?
Roll call vote.
On referral 11-188, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Barker. Yes. Chairman Daniele.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito is excused. Mr. Haney. No. Mr. Hyder is excused. Mr. McCann is excused. Mr. O'Brien. No. Dr. Quattro. Yes. Mr. Tucciarello. Yes. Mr. Yolovich. Yes. President Adair. Yes. 6-3. Item passes.
Next item. Uh, 189.
Thank you. Referral 11-189, adoption of determination.
Moved by Legislator Quattro, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 11-190, authorize the contract.
Moved by Legislator Tucciarello, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Legislator Haney.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, how does the $783,000 compare to the pre-bidding estimate?
Through the chair, the engineer's estimate was $985,287. So this bid was $201,938 below, or about approximately 20.5% below the engineer's estimate.
Great.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 11-191, authorize the
Moved
contract.
by Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Barker. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries.
Referral 11-192.
Moved by legislator Barker, seconded by legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before this committee at this time? There being no further business, the July 27, 2011 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 24th at 6 p.m. Thank you.